mierda!
Hey, which one of my skills is required? Call me back when you've figured out how that brain of yours works.
is Bryony from Alan Jerome Productions. I was told you might be interested in participating in our online TV streaming live entertainment experience Arena War at the Maze Bank Arena. We're looking for high net worth individuals to buy workshops overlooking the action and participate in our live shows. If you like big vehicles, explosions, bright lights, meaningless fame, and all-out competition, Arena War might be the thing for you. Find us online and join the fun. I'm paid to say that.
Listen, this is Tony Prince. I'll cut straight to the chase. I heard you were a savvy investor, shall we say? Yes, I like that, a savvy investor. I'm not such a savvy investor. I was gonna open up a chain of venues, only that's all gone to shit. Again. But head over to foreclosures.mazebank.com and buy one out of foreclosure. I can open you the best nightclub in the whole state.
You fucking loser! We still on for that bet, right?
Quite a...
shit! I've had about it. I was convicted of a crime. Spent a few years in the joint. But I knew my fans would be here waiting for me. Freedom?
That should sort things out for everyone. You just keep on fracking, boys. Does anyone want a photo?
Jack's back!
I prove not all closeted rich guys are creepy.
Oh, impotent rage. You're such an ignoramus.
Uberman! You littering peg! I was wondering when you turn up.
Oh, my suit is so fancy. This suit is actually pleasuring me right now. Oh, who's your daddy? Who's your daddy? Yang! You've worked yourself up into such a liberal lather that you actually ended up helping the opposition. These are natural gas wells that pollute the environment, not 3 old queens into P&P.
What? Oh, no! What have I done? Maybe I'll donate some money to charities. Build a statue of a kid in a wheelchair? That will clear my conscience.
I've come to save the day again. From you. The common herd needs a genetically superior synthetic fiber-clad sociopath lunatic to look up to. Not a soy latte sipping dweeb with a flaccid... Well, you get the point. But first, I'm off to drill some oil wells in environmentally sensitive wetlands. Goodbye, impotent rag.
No! I must stop him. To the impotent mobile electric car! Initiate solar panel sequence right away! Why must the conservatives always win?
This is America. Our fires burn bright, especially in the trash barrels that keep people warm, or after a riot because there's no jobs. America is hurting. We're at each other's throats, wondering if this country can ever come back from the abyss while bankers loot the coffers. Same time, like a woman, or Lady Happiness. We made the problems, and we're solving them together, because we're in this together, which is why it's only right you're paying for the mistakes we made together. Subpar cars and overly entitled executives. Together, we're holding on to the dream. That dream is luxury, and a gas-guzzling luxury car, created in a nation that's 95% condemned. We haven't forgotten what America wants. A hunk of overpriced shit.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. It's the NTD Business and I'm Paul Graney. The latest news on alleged voter fraud during the 2020 election. We speak to the nonpartisan Every Legal Vote about the significant evidence it's seen. Senator Lindsey Graham says there were serious problems with some of the machines for checking signatures in Nevada. The Trump administration strikes a deal to make the COVID-19 vaccine free. It will be available at pharmacies across the United States. We talked to a market analyst to get his take on the stock market's reaction to the election and the vaccine development. President Trump says he's confident he'll win when all is said and done, and he says people shouldn't bet against him. He said many people have told him to concede, but he's going to continue the fight. Here are the states that are still in play. The gray states are still contested. The president says he'll win Wisconsin and that he'll win Arizona after a vote audit. He also suggests he'll win Georgia after a full hand recount. He says he's also focused on how Republican observers weren't allowed to observe parts of the counting process in Michigan and Pennsylvania. Trump made the comments during an interview with the Washington Examiner. But one state he didn't mention was Nevada. Major news outlets project a Biden win in Nevada, and Decision Desk says he's 37,000 votes ahead. But Senator Lindsey Graham says the Trump campaign lawsuits could show that signatures on millions of ballots in Nevada weren't verified. He says some of the machines there basically were turned off. Here's the details.
Senator Lindsey Graham told Fox News on Thursday that Nevada's signature-confirming machines were allegedly not working.
Signature verification in Nevada was meaningless because they set the computer up on a setting where it would approve anything. If you don't have a system to check the signatures, mail-in ballots become just ballot stuffing.
Graham alleges that in Clark County, where Las Vegas is, the machine was basically turned off. He claims the machine didn't check signatures of millions of ballots. He said Trump's team may win the lawsuit there. Last week, Graham, who's head of the Senate Judiciary Committee, said they will investigate any alleged voter irregularities. Nevada's Republican Secretary of State said the Election Integrity Task Force is helping her office to probe all credible allegations of fraud related to the election.
In Arizona, Republicans want a hand count by precinct instead of vote center. A vote center is what the state's largest county set up this year. There are far fewer of them than precincts, but Republicans argue this means a less accurate result.
Arizona Republicans are suing for a hand recount by precinct rather than by voting center. Maricopa County set up vote centers for the first time this year. It's different from previous elections where voters were assigned 175 vote centers this election, but there are 748 precincts. Republicans argue that state statute requires a hand recount by precinct and that it would be more accurate. Chairwoman of the Arizona Republican Party question is whether the Secretary of State's election manual can supersede Arizona state law. Maricopa County is vital to winning Arizona's 11 electoral votes. It makes up over 60% of Arizona's population. States are still counting and certifying results. Arizona's deadline for resolving disputes is December 8th.
Latest numbers in Arizona show Biden ahead by about 11,000 votes. That's about 0.32 points. And the highly anticipated election recount in Georgia started today, but Republicans aren't satisfied with how the counting is being handled. They say there weren't enough monitors on the floor. NTD's Miguel Moreno has more on that.
The recount began on Friday, and according to the state secretary, Georgia's tight election results are expected to be certified or formally recognized by next Friday. But Republicans like Georgia Republican Party Chairman David Schaefer and Congressman Doug Collins listed a number of complaints in a letter to the state secretary, one of which was only allowing one monitor per party per 10 tables. Schaefer asked, "Does this inspire confidence?" in the caption of this video uploaded to his Twitter account about a person he says is a GOP observer.
I mean, this is horrible for our integrity of our election process.
Gabriel Sterling, Georgia's voting system implementation manager, says no one from either party had issues with the limit on monitors. But both Schaefer and Congressman Collins refuted his claim, saying they raised the issue on Thursday and cited the letter they sent the state secretary dated November 12th. The congressman says one monitor cannot observe 10 tables at once. We contacted the state secretary's office for comment, but they didn't get back to us before airtime. Miguel Moreno, NTD News.
And in Michigan, a poll watcher and lawyer has submitted witness testimony claiming that illegal election practices took place there. He says he's monitored a lot of elections in the last 20 years, but he's never seen anything like this.
As an American, I have monitored a lot of elections in the last 20 years, and I've never seen anything like this.
Attorney David Evans volunteered as a Republican poll watcher in Michigan's Wayne County. He's one among a number of people who've submitted accounts to the Trump campaign of alleged fraud and illegal election practices taking place in Michigan. Evans says what went on in Detroit's TCF Center the evening after Election Day was the worst of what he saw. There, he says Republican volunteers or challengers who have the legal right to be in there were blocked from entering the ballot counting hall.
The entrance to the room was blocked by police officers, and they were very unusual looking police officers. They did not have consistent uniforms. Some of them didn't have badges on. Some of them had long hair, which you would not associate with a police officer. But they stopped the challengers from coming in. And I was told that the challengers had requested to come in and had been denied. So I asked one of the police officers, please bring somebody from, inside the room who's an official to talk to us. And nobody came out for about an hour.
Evans says the person that did eventually come out was arrogant and dismissive. We contacted the county clerk's office for comment, but they didn't get back to us before airtime. Evans says they also placed cardboard over windows to block Republicans from seeing what went on in the ballot counting room.
Again, it was obvious that they did not want us to see what was going on in the room, and the challengers had a legal right to be there. Under the law, they had a right to be in that room, and they were denied access, even when I requested that they be allowed to come in.
According to CNN Business, an attorney for the city of Detroit said that they covered some windows with cardboard to stop people from taking pictures and video of poll workers on duty, something only the media was allowed to do. In a video uploaded by a local newspaper, a woman who appears to be an election official says they were only letting nonpartisan people enter the ballot counting room that day after letting in nearly 270 Democrats and nearly 230 Republicans. We couldn't confirm at what time that announcement was made. Evans says President Trump is correct that these incidents should be investigated.
In the United States, the people control the government. And when you engage in fraudulent voting, it's somebody else other than the people that are controlling that vote and therefore controlling the government. So you've got to ensure that everything is done 100% correctly.
Evans claims he saw other illegal activity at other polling places, like voting from vehicles without the presence of observers from each political party and a failure to properly secure ballots. Miguel Moreno, NTD News.
But despite the multiple legal challenges claiming voting irregularities, the Department of Homeland Security's cybersecurity agency says the 2020 election is the most secure in American history. A recent statement reads, right now across the country, election officials are reviewing and double-checking the entire election process prior to finalizing the result. It says all the states with close results have paper records of each vote. Election officials can go back and count them if necessary. And there are other security measures, including pre-election testing and voting equipment certification on the state and federal level. It also says there's no evidence that any voting system deleted or lost votes, changed votes, or was in any way compromised. The agency assures the public it has the utmost confidence in the security and integrity of our elections. But Kevin Freeman, co-founder of Every Legal Vote, is worried about the voting systems. In fact, he's been worried about them for years. He started Every Legal Vote to give people a place to share instances of potential voter fraud. He says social media sites have been blocking this type of sharing. Freeman says it's a nonpartisan initiative and people can submit evidence of fraud regardless of which party it's related to. but he does say every piece of evidence so far has been on the Democrat side. I asked him, what's the most significant thing he's found so far?
The most significant is obviously Dominion systems and the risks of whether or not that's getting a valid, accurate count of the vote. And this is something on my program, Economic War Room, we've covered for 3 years. The election machines are vulnerable, and their passwords are available on the dark web. We showed that. Anybody could hack in and change votes, and this is not something that's acceptable to the United States. And these systems are used all across the country, and they're all vulnerable.
You knew this 3 years ago.
Pretty nearly, yeah. The team, some of the people that I worked with had studied the systems, and they said, look, the hacker can get in this in 5 seconds. They're connected to the internet. This is a flaw in our election system that is open vulnerability. And it's not, this again is bipartisan. This could ruin the campaigns of Democrats or Republicans. It's subject to hackers, potentially. And so, yes, we did full programs, economicwarroom.com/myvote, and you can see the programs we did with a hacker who was obscured because he's got a bounty on his head, telling the story of how he could get into any of these systems in a matter of seconds.
And do you feel we have a hand count coming up in Georgia? Will this uncover something like this, do you think?
I'm not an expert, but I certainly hope so. The problem is when you send them through the machines, you get a barcode often. And the barcode doesn't necessarily match with what's listed on the ballot. So if they're monkeying with the barcodes, then absolutely it will catch it. It certainly would have caught that so-called glitch in Michigan, which they did find, where there were like 6,000 votes shifted. It would catch that. So we're hoping that a full hand count, that we want to count every legal vote. And we need social patience. You know, people want to rush and have this over with, but this is too important. We can't lose confidence in our election system. It's too important to not have social patience to count every legal vote.
And I know on your website you've a very nice table and you've marked the different states where you've identified potential fraud. What else have you seen?
Well, we've had a lot of reports, people sending in and said, here's where I went to vote, and they told me that I'd already voted by mail, but I didn't request a mail-in ballot. We've had people who say, my mother has dementia and is in a nursing home, and I just decided to check, did she vote? And I asked her, and she didn't vote, and yet she was marked down as having voted. There are instance after instance after instance like this that people have self-reported to us, and of course we're going to pass all of that information along, but also make it available for everyone to see.
And of course you guys are reporting on it, we're reporting on it here, but overall, I would say very little being said, or at least little being said. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think people are afraid to have transparency. I mean, Ned Ryan, you know, the son of the congressman and a conservative powerhouse in his own right, decided he just wanted to tweet everylegalvote.com. It got censored. They wouldn't let him send that tweet. And so he took a picture of the website and tweeted the picture, and that got out. But McAfee accused us of having problems, and so we actually hired McAfee to look into our site, and they gave us a certification. There's no malware on our site. But that's what people are doing, is they're trying to keep the information from getting out because they're afraid that if we look too deep into this, we'll find the rat's nest that's there. And if we uncover that rat's nest, it has massively serious implications. But the truth has to come out. Every legal vote must be counted. It's a part of our right as citizens to have our vote counted.
So looking at all the evidence and your different analysis, where do you think things will go?
Well, I hope that we'll have hand recounts in all of these states, and I hope that every state official will look at their system that they're using to validate and verify that its election machines are vulnerable, and their passwords are available on the dark web.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. It's the NTD Business and I'm Paul Graney. The latest news on alleged voter fraud during the 2020 election. We speak to the nonpartisan Every Legal Vote about the significant evidence it seems. Senator Lindsey Graham says there were serious problems with some of the machines for checking signatures in Nevada. The Trump administration strikes a deal to make the COVID-19 vaccine free to be available at pharmacies across the United States. We talked to a market analyst to get his take on the stock market's reaction to the election and the vaccine development. President Trump says he's confident he'll win when all is said and done, and he says people shouldn't bet against him. He said many people have told him to concede, but he's going to continue the fight. Here are the states that are still in play. The gray states are still contested. The president says he'll win Wisconsin and that he'll win Arizona after a vote audit. He also suggests he'll win Georgia after a full hand recount. He says he's also focused on how Republican observers weren't allowed to observe parts of the counting process in Michigan and Pennsylvania. Trump made the comments during an interview with the Washington Examiner. But one state he didn't mention was Nevada. Major news outlets project a Biden win in Nevada, and Decision Desk says he's 37,000 votes ahead. But Senator Lindsey Graham says the Trump campaign lawsuits could show that signatures on millions of ballots in Nevada weren't verified. He says some of the machines there basically were turned off. Here's the details.
Senator Lindsey Graham told Fox News on Thursday that Nevada's signature-confirming machines were allegedly not working.
Signature verification in Nevada was meaningless because they set the computer up on a setting where it would approve anything. If you don't have a system to check the signatures, mail-in ballots become just ballot stuffing.
Graham alleges that in Clark County, where Las Vegas is, the machine was basically turned off. He claims the machine didn't check signatures of millions of ballots. He said Trump's team may win the lawsuit there. Last week, Graham, who's head of the Senate Judiciary Committee, said they will investigate any alleged voter irregularities. Nevada's Republican Secretary of State said the Election Integrity Task Force is helping her office to probe all credible allegations of fraud related to the election.
In Arizona, Republicans want a hand count by precinct instead of vote center. A vote center is what the state's largest county set up this year. There are far fewer of them than precincts, but Republicans argue this means a less accurate result.
Arizona Republicans are suing for a hand recount by precinct rather than by voting center. Maricopa County set up vote centers for the first time this year. It's different from previous elections where voters were assigned to polling centers in their precincts. The biggest difference is the numbers. There are only about 175 vote centers this election, but there are 748 precincts. Republicans argue that state statute requires a hand recount by precinct and that it would be more accurate. Chairwoman of the Arizona Republican Party, Kelly Ward, says counting by precinct would provide more confidence in the result. She says the question is whether the Secretary of State's election manual can supersede Arizona state law. Maricopa County is vital to winning Arizona's 11 electoral votes. It makes up over 60% of Arizona's population. States are still counting and certifying results. Arizona's deadline for resolving disputes is December 8th.
Latest numbers in Arizona show Biden ahead by about 11,000 votes. That's about 0.32 points. And the highly anticipated election recount in Georgia started today, but Republicans aren't satisfied with how the counting is being handled. They say there weren't enough monitors on the floor. NTD's Miguel Moreno has more on that.
The recount began on Friday, and according to the state secretary, Georgia's tight election results are expected to be certified or formally recognized by next Friday. But Republicans like Georgia Republican Party Chairman David Schaefer and Congressman Doug Collins listed a number of complaints in a letter to the state secretary, one of which was only allowing one monitor per party per 10 tables. Schaefer asked, "Does this inspire confidence?" in the caption of this video uploaded to his Twitter account about a person he says is a GOP observer.
I mean, this is horrible for our integrity of our election process.
Gabriel Sterling, Georgia's voting system implementation manager, says no one from either party had issues with the limit on monitors. But both Schaefer and Congressman Collins refuted his claim, saying they raised the issue on Thursday and cited the letter they sent the state secretary dated November 12th. The congressman says one monitor cannot observe 10 tables at once. We contacted the state secretary's office for comment, but they didn't get back to us before airtime. Miguel Moreno, NTD News.
And in Michigan, a poll watcher and lawyer has submitted witness testimony claiming that illegal election practices took place there. He says he's monitored a lot of elections in the last 20 years, but he's never seen anything like this.
As an American, I have monitored a lot of elections in the last 20 years, and I've never seen anything like this.
Attorney David Evans volunteered as a Republican poll watcher in Michigan's Wayne County. He's one among a number of people who've submitted accounts to the Trump campaign of alleged fraud and illegal election practices taking place in Michigan. Evans says what went on in Detroit's TCF Center the evening after Election Day was the worst of what he saw. There, he says Republican volunteers or challengers who have the legal right to be in there were blocked from entering the ballot counting hall.
The entrance to the room was blocked by police officers, and they were very unusual looking police officers. They did not have consistent uniforms. Some of them didn't have badges on. Some of them had long hair, which you would not associate with a police officer. But they stopped the challengers from coming in. And I was told that the challengers had requested to come in and it had been denied. So I asked one of the police officers, please bring somebody from, inside the room who's an official to talk to us. And nobody came out for about an hour.
Evans says the person that did eventually come out was arrogant and dismissive. We contacted the county clerk's office for comment, but they didn't get back to us before airtime. Evans says they also placed cardboard over windows to block Republicans from seeing what went on in the ballot counting room.
Again, it was obvious that they did not want us to see what was going on in the room. And the challengers had a legal right to be there. Under the law, they had a right to be in that room. And they were denied access, even when I requested that they be allowed to come in.
According to CNN Business, an attorney for the city of Detroit said that they covered some windows with cardboard to stop people from taking pictures and video of poll workers on duty, something only the media was allowed to do. In a video uploaded by a local newspaper, a woman who appears to be an election official says they were only letting nonpartisan people enter the ballot counting room that day after letting in nearly 270 Democrats and nearly 230 Republicans. We couldn't confirm at what time that announcement was made. Evans says President Trump is correct that these incidents should be investigated.
In the United States, the people control the government. And when you engage in fraudulent voting, it's somebody else other than the people that are controlling that vote and therefore controlling the government. So you've got to ensure that everything is done 100% correctly.
Evans claims he saw other illegal activity at other polling places, like voting from vehicles without the presence of observers from each political party and a failure to properly secure ballots. Miguel Moreno, NTD News.
But despite the multiple legal challenges claiming voting irregularities, the Department of Homeland Security's cybersecurity agency says the 2020 election is the most secure in American history. A recent statement reads, right now across the country, election officials are reviewing and double-checking the entire election process prior to finalizing the result. It says all the states with close results have paper records of each vote. Election officials can go back and count them if necessary. And there are other security measures, including pre-election testing and voting equipment certification on the state and federal level. It also says there's no evidence that any voting system deleted or lost votes, changed votes, or was in any way compromised. The agency assures the public it has the utmost confidence in the security and integrity of our elections. But Kevin Freeman, co-founder of Every Legal Vote, is worried about the voting systems. In fact, he's been worried about them for years. He started Every Legal Vote to give people a place to share instances of potential voter fraud. He says social media sites have been blocking this type of sharing. Freeman says it's a nonpartisan initiative and people can submit evidence of fraud regardless of which party it's related to. But he does say every piece of evidence so far has been on the Democrat side. I asked him, what's the most significant thing he's found so far?
The most significant is obviously Dominion systems and the risks of whether or not that's getting a valid, accurate count of the vote. And this is something on my program, Economic War Room, we've covered for 3 years. The election machines are vulnerable, and their passwords are available on the dark web. We showed that. Anybody could hack in and change votes, and this is not something that's acceptable for the United States. And these systems are used all across the country, and they're all vulnerable.
You knew this 3 years ago.
Pretty nearly, yeah. The team, some of the people that I worked with had studied the systems, and they said, look, the hacker can get in this in 5 seconds. They're connected to the internet. This is a flaw in our election system that is open vulnerability. And it's not, this again is bipartisan. This could ruin the campaigns of Democrats or Republicans. It's subject to hackers potentially. And so, yes, we did full programs, economicwarroom.com/myvote, and you can see the programs we did with a hacker who was obscured because he's got a bounty on his head, telling the story of how he could get into any of these systems in a matter of seconds.
And do you feel we have a hand count coming up in Georgia? Will this uncover something like this, do you think?
I'm not an expert, but I certainly hope so. The problem is when you send them through the machines, you get a barcode often. And the barcode doesn't necessarily match with what's listed on the ballot. So if they're monkeying with the barcodes, then absolutely it will catch it. It certainly would have caught that so-called glitch in Michigan, which they did find, where there were like 6,000 votes shifted. It would catch that. So we're hoping that a full hand count, that we want to count every legal vote. And we need social patience. You know, people want to rush and have this over with, but this is too important. We can't lose confidence in our election system. It's too important to not have social patience to count every legal vote.
And I know on your website you've a very nice table and you've marked the different states where you've identified potential fraud. What else have you seen?
Well, we've had a lot of reports, people sending in and said, here's where I went to vote, and they told me that I'd already voted by mail, but I didn't request a mail-in ballot. We've had people who say, my mother has dementia and is in a nursing home, and I just decided to check, did she vote? And I asked her, and she didn't vote, and yet she was marked down as having voted. There are instance after instance after instance like this that people have self-reported to us, and of course we're going to pass all of that information along, but also make it available for everyone to see.
And of course, you guys are reporting on it, we're reporting on it here, but overall, there's, I would say, very little being said, or at least little being said. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think people are afraid to have transparency. I mean, Ned Ryan, you know, the son of the congressman and a conservative powerhouse in his own right, decided he just wanted to tweet everylegalvote.com. It got censored. They wouldn't let him send that tweet. And so he took a picture of the website and tweeted the picture, and that got out. But McAfee accused us of having problems, and so we actually hired McAfee to look into our site, and they gave us a certification. There's no malware on our site. But that's what people are doing, is they're trying to keep the information from getting out because they're afraid that if we look too deep into this, we'll find the rat's nest that's there. And if we uncover that rat's nest, it has massively serious implications. But the truth has to come out. Every legal vote must be counted. It's a part of our right as citizens to have our vote counted.
So looking at all the evidence and your different analysis, where do you think things will go?
Well, I hope that we'll have hand recounts in all of these states, and I hope that every state official will look at their system that they're using to validate and verify that it's honest. We should have, I mean, blockchain has promised they could come in and they could make it audible. We could see this. In the next time we have an election, it needs to be the cleanest, fairest election we've ever had. And that's what I hope we accomplish with this.
I hope so too, Kevin. Appreciate the analysis. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
And still to come this evening, we talked to Nick Rees at Merck Investments to get his take on the market's reaction to the election and the recent vaccine news. And San Francisco halts indoor dining. We hear from a restaurant owner and residents about how they feel about the new restrictions. And more after the break. Welcome back. The Trump administration just struck a deal with pharmacies to make the COVID-19 vaccine free. The deal involves around 60% of all pharmacies across the U.S., including Walgreens, CVS, Costco, and some others. The deal is part of Operation Warp Speed. That's the Trump administration's effort to get people a COVID-19 vaccine as soon as possible. Health and Human Services Secretary says most Americans live within about 5 miles of a pharmacy. He says pharmacies not covered are encouraged to coordinate with local health departments. And in market news, Wall Street closed higher Friday. Investors probably hopeful for successful vaccines, even as the surge in virus cases and restrictions continue across the country. The Dow rose nearly 400 points, or 1.37%. S&P 500 gained over 48 points, or 1.36%. The Nasdaq added about 120 points, or about 1%. Energy and industrial sectors outperformed the others, maybe indicating optimism the economy is getting back on its footing. The Nasdaq, however, underperformed slightly as investors booked profits in their tech stocks. About 90% of the S&P 500 companies have released their third quarter reports, and Refinitiv says profits fell about 8% from last year. So with the threat of more lockdowns and some lawmakers even calling for Thanksgiving to be cancelled, more on that in a moment, why are the markets still rising? Ask Nick Reese, he's a senior portfolio manager of Merck Investments.
Well, I think that the markets are going to look through any near-term lockdowns. We sort of went through this with the markets initially back in March, so it's not too unexpected if we do have some lockdowns. As you say, we do seem to see that kind of sweeping across much of the country, sort of a second wave of lockdowns. But I do think that the fiscal authorities, the lawmakers, will come together with some kind of extension on the fiscal relief package. I do think that's needed and important, and I expect that something will come together on that front, hopefully by the end of the year. And then more importantly, I think the market clearly willing to look through this near-term disruption, given the good news that we've received on the vaccine and the fact that it does look like there's some light at the end of the tunnel here.
And have the markets already factored in a Biden win? Did we see increases in renewables or similar stocks already?
Well, I think that a lot of that had been priced in before the election. And so I think that's something that we talked about before, that it's very difficult to guess the outcome of these elections, and even harder to guess what the market reaction is going to be, because you don't know really what exactly has been priced in up to that point. So we didn't see a blue wave. I think that's pretty clear. And so it looks like we will have a split Congress, and probably gridlock in Washington is the preferred market outcome in many ways. So thematically, I think we're seeing a little bit coming off of that sort of green energy theme that had been building throughout the year with the expectation of a Biden win. But we did see with the vaccine news on Monday a big rotation from growth into value. It was the biggest one-day outperformance of value stocks over growth as far as the data goes back, which is to the mid-1990s. So we'll have to see if that theme, if there's a sustainable change in leadership there. Keep an eye on that. But certainly, I think that news on the vaccine pulling forward when we might get back to normal here.
And you've been tracking the different macroeconomic indicators as well. How are they looking?
Everything looks like it's pointing to continued economic expansion. I mean, I would say that I think we're clearly out of the recession. The recession is really the peak to trough phase of the contraction, which I think we got through in Q2. So we are in the recovery phase, clearly not quite yet back to where we were. Certainly, if you look at an indicator like unemployment, there's still quite a bit of work to do. But all the indicators that I follow do point to continued economic expansion. But like I said, I think a fiscal relief package will be important to continue to bridge that gap left by the pandemic and the lockdowns. But for the most part, I think the expansion continues.
We'll see if they can get their act together this time around. Nick, really appreciate the analysis. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Paul.
Several cities are rolling out new restrictions as CCP virus cases keep rising. Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot has issued a new stay-at-home order.
Stay home unless you have to go out for essential reasons. Do not have guests over. Avoid unnecessary travel and cancel your traditional Thanksgiving plans.
New York City is now weighing shutting schools down if cases keep rising. It's taken new measures to slow the spread. And Ohio is now sending agents to enforce mask wearing in retail establishments statewide. And a member of Joe Biden's CCP virus task force says his earlier remark about a 4 to 6 week nationwide lockdown doesn't reflect the Biden team's position. Several Biden advisors have rejected the idea of a nationwide lockdown, calling instead for a more nuanced and targeted approach. But new virus restrictions are going into effect in San Francisco. That means no more indoor dining for restaurants in the Bay Area. It's not clear how long the new measures will be in place.
Restaurants in San Francisco, California are preparing to lose indoor dining Friday. The rollbacks are due to a rise in CCP virus cases across the Bay Area. One restaurant owner says he expects a 30% hit to his income.
I think we're used to rolling with the punches more than ever. So this particular setback of no indoor dining is, I think, probably where we need to be as a country to get it under control. But also, this isn't day one. We're not newbies to all of this.
He says he's focused on diversifying as much as he can with to-go orders, online cooking classes, and even an online shop. He says some months make a loss and others a small profit.
It's really, it's month to month, it's ups and downs, but as long as it averages okay, then we're okay.
Residents already have concerns about dining indoors.
I'm pretty worried about the second wave that seems to be happening right now, so that's definitely contributing to a fear of dining out.
I still think that there, is still quite a lot of evidence showing that inside is, at much higher risk than being outside. And when the city has gone to such, great lengths to provide, these outdoor dining opportunities, I just haven't really felt the need or pressure to go inside.
Fitness centres and movie theatres in the city must reduce their capacity, and some high schools will pause reopening. US virus cases have consistently been above 100,000 this week. On Wednesday, the highest daily total of hospitalizations was recorded at just under 65,000. The Golden Gate Restaurant Association said they anticipate significant job losses.
Still to come this evening, a British company says it can make 5G much cheaper by sending the signal from the sky. Find out how it works after the break. With the peak of the online holiday shopping season just around the corner, a new survey warns us that porch pirates are getting ready to go on a stealing spree. The survey by Finder.com reports $5.4 billion in thefts at the front door or apartment lobby areas over the past year. That amounts to over $150 worth of packages stolen from the average American. Consumer advocates worry the problem will only get worse, with online purchases expected to be up 11% over last year. In fact, more than 2/3 of all holiday shopping will be delivered. According to the survey, the thieves are more likely to hit more wealthy homes or neighborhoods. So if you want to protect your packages, use a P.O. box or add a home security camera or even require a signature release. One very surprising finding is that about 1 in 9 victims of porch pirates admit to stealing packages themselves. Unbelievable. A UK tech company says its airborne 5G network could slash the cost of running a next-generation system. They're going to beam signals from high in the sky.
Forget mobile phone masts. One UK tech company has found a different way to keep us connected by beaming 5G across large areas directly from an aircraft.
It's essentially a cell phone tower sitting up in the sky at 60,000 feet. And obviously at that sort of altitude it can see much more than any small tower can on the ground. And it covers a huge area, so unlike a small cell phone tower on the ground which could cover a few kilometres, this covers around 140 kilometres in diameter, so a vast area. And anywhere within that beam you're going to be able to connect your cell phone at speeds of over 100 megabits per second.
The company says they're developing an emission-free hydrogen fuel cell system unmanned aircraft with a wingspan of 197 foot, as big as a Boeing 747. It's able to stay aloft for 9 days, and each aircraft can do the job of 200 terrestrial towers. The company says the airborne network could slash the cost of running a next-generation system by as much as 70%.
A lot of the UK doesn't have decent cell phone coverage, as we know. And if you think 4G coverage is bad, then the range on 5G is even shorter. So you need even more masts. And there are estimates that have been done that suggest for 5G that you need an additional 400,000 masts in the UK, which is clearly impractical. The advantage of this type of technology is that you avoid the need for putting any of those masts in, and you can roll this out very quickly without disrupting local communities.
Each antenna produces 480 steerable beams that can create a pattern of coverage on the ground that can be controlled to cover a specific city, area, shipping lane, motorway, or even a moving target like a train or autonomous car. The technology also opens up the possibility of providing coverage exactly where required, for example, ending at national borders.
The advantage of satellite is you can see large areas of the Earth, but you're a very long way away. So compared to flying in the stratosphere, you're between 10 and 100 times further away from the surface of the Earth in space than you are at the stratosphere. So it's an ideal sort of Goldilocks position. You're far enough up that you can see large areas of the ground, but you're close enough that you can get a very high performance service.
The platform is due to make its first flight in 2022, with operational deployment expected around 2024.
That's the latest business updates for this week, but you can catch NTD Evening News at 6:30 p.m. Eastern tonight. They have in-depth reporting on the 2020 election. From us at NTD Business, thank you. We'll see you on Monday.
When you think about racial equality and civil rights, which political party comes to mind? The Republicans or the Democrats? Most people would probably say the Democrats, but this answer is incorrect. Since its founding in 1829, the Democratic Party has fought against every major civil rights initiative and has a long history of discrimination. The Democratic Party defended slavery, started the Civil War, opposed Reconstruction, founded the Ku Klux Klan, imposed segregation, perpetrated lynchings, and fought against the Civil Rights Acts of the 1950s and 1960s. In contrast, the Republican Party was founded in 1854 as an anti-slavery party. Its mission was to stop the spread of slavery into the new Western territories with the aim of abolishing it entirely. This effort, however, was dealt a major blow by the Supreme Court in the 1857 case Dred Scott versus Sandford. The court ruled that slaves aren't citizens, they're property. The 7 justices who voted in favor of slavery, all Democrats. The 2 justices who dissented, both Republicans. The slavery question was, of course, ultimately resolved by a bloody civil war. The commander-in-chief during that war was the first Republican president, Abraham Lincoln, the man who freed the slaves. 6 days after the Confederate Army surrendered, John Wilkes Booth, a Democrat, assassinated President Lincoln. Lincoln's vice president, a Democrat named Andrew Johnson, assumed the presidency. But Johnson adamantly opposed Lincoln's plan to integrate the newly freed slaves into the South's economic and social order. Johnson and the Democratic Party were unified in their opposition to the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery, the 14th Amendment, which gave blacks citizenship, and the 15th Amendment, which gave blacks the vote. All 3 passed only because of universal Republican support. During the era of Reconstruction, federal troops stationed in the South helped secure rights for the newly freed slaves. Hundreds of black men were elected to Southern state legislatures as Republicans, and 22 black Republicans served in the U.S. Congress by 1900. The Democrats did not elect a black man to Congress until 1935. But after Reconstruction ended, when the federal troops went home, Democrats roared back into power in the South. They quickly reestablished white supremacy across the region with measures like black codes, laws that restricted the ability of blacks to own property and run businesses, and they imposed poll taxes and literacy tests used to subvert black citizens' right to vote. And how was all of this enforced? By terror, much of it instigated by the Ku Klux Klan, founded by a Democrat, Nathan Bedford Forrest. As historian Eric Foner, himself a Democrat, notes, in effect, the Klan was a military force serving the interests of the Democratic Party. President Woodrow Wilson, a Democrat, shared many views with the Klan. He resegregated many federal agencies and even screened the first movie ever played at the White House, the racist film, The Birth of a Nation, originally entitled The Klansman. A few decades later, the only serious congressional opposition to the landmark Civil Rights Act of 1964 came from Democrats. 80% of Republicans in Congress supported the bill, less than 70% of Democrats did. Democratic senators filibustered the bill for 75 days until Republicans mustered the few extra votes needed to break the logjam. And when all of their efforts to enslave blacks, keep them enslaved, and then keep them from voting had failed, the Democrats came up with a new strategy. If black people are going to vote, they might as well vote for Democrats. As President Lyndon Johnson was purported to have said about the Civil Rights Act, I'll have them voting Democrat for 200 years. So now, the Democratic Party prospers on the votes of the very people it has spent much of its history oppressing. Democrats falsely claim that the Republican Party is the villain, when in reality, it's the failed policies of the Democratic Party that have kept blacks down. Massive government welfare has decimated the black family. Opposition to school choice has kept them trapped in failing schools. Politically correct policing has left black neighborhoods defenseless against violent crime. So when you think about racial equality and civil rights, which political party should come to mind? I'm Carol Swain, professor of political science and law at Vanderbilt University for Prager University. Thanks for watching. To keep our videos free, click here.
Now, live from EIB, Southern Command Headquarters, the most listened to talk radio host in the history of the medium, radio talk show legend, Rush Limbaugh. Hey, Rush, how are you?
I am fabulous. It's great to be with you tonight.
You know, for those that never got you, with half my brain tied behind my back, in a lot of ways, you're like Trump. You say these things and people bubble and fizz like Alka-Seltzer. They have no sense of humor. I'm not sure if that got through. We get stuck on the thing. So you say controversial things also. And you're joking when you say half my brain tied behind my back.
Well, no, actually, I do. I split my skull open and I take half of it out and I put it behind my back. I mean, it's like when I say talent on loan from God. I mean, these people, he's calling himself God. Can't believe that. You know, Sean, I've been listening to your whole show. The people that we're talking about tonight don't have a sense of humor. To them, life is a war. Every day of their lives is a battle. We are the enemy. Their effort is to eliminate us. Al-Qaeda is not their enemy, and ISIS is not their enemy, and socialism's not their enemy. Communism, we are. Conservative and Republican America, in their view, are the obstacles in their way to their desire to create this totalitarian state that they think is going to end up being a utopia. And I was listening to you and Don Jr. talking about this should never, ever happen again. I have to clarify, it is not over. It is still happening. The Democrat Party and the media and all of these people from the Obama administration who ran this scandal are still running it. The objective remains to get Donald Trump out of office, either by driving his numbers down or impeaching him or defeating him in 2020. Today, the New York Times has this story that the Mueller report, 4 pages. Therefore, Barr is lying. Pelosi literally said that we cannot trust the Attorney General. So what we're being led to believe by these people, remember, they have to feed their beast with this fake news constantly. They have created a monster that believes and absorbs and needs fake news like vampires need your blood. And these people are believing now that there is evidence of collusion in the Mueller report and that Barr is not telling the truth. And the New York Times is leading this effort. The rest of the drive-by media is going to pick it up because it prolongs the narrative that Trump is unworthy, that Trump cheated, that we need to redo the election results 2016. So we're being led to believe that this report does contain evidence of collusion. Barr's lying about it. Now, if this is so silly, if it contains evidence of collusion, then where is Mueller on television all night saying, wait a minute, that's not what my report says. My report has plenty of evidence of collusion. I had all these anti-Hillary people on my staff, and we found all kinds of evidence, and Barr is lying. Why isn't Mueller doing that if Barr is lying about what's in the report? So it is an ongoing effort to continue to attack and impugn the integrity and the decency and the qualifications of Donald Trump to be president of the United States. It's not going to stop. The media, I mean, look at this. If and I told this story on the radio today, if I had lied to my audience for 2 years that I knew Hillary Clinton was being investigated, I had sources, and that she was going down and she was going to be locked up, you can count on me. You can believe me. I'm hearing it from people that I trust. It is going to happen. 2 years, every day on my program, 15 hours a week. I pummel people with this. And then it turns out to be not true. I'm finished. I can't face my audience again. I've lied to them. They wouldn't want anything to do with me. I would try to apologize, but I wouldn't get away with it because I would have exploited them. I would have used them. I would have toyed with them. I would have manipulated. I would have lied to them. This exact thing has happened from MSNBC to CNN to the New York Times to the Washington Post. They're lying to everybody, and their audiences don't seem to care. Just give us more fake news. They want it. They can't accept that it's not true. They can't accept that Donald Trump is not a traitor. They're not happy to learn that their president is not a foreign agent. They're unhappy. We're dealing with deranged people who are not rational. We can't deal with them rationally. Karl Rove today said, Mr. President, you need to move on. You don't need to do an investigation. You don't need to find out what happened. Swing voters don't care. One thing that I heard that you guys were discussing, and I completely agree with, we have got to get to the bottom of this. We've got to have people named. They have to be held accountable. If jail time is called for, they need to go to jail. They knowingly lied to the American people. The media were willingly complicit in this. They were not fooled. They wanted it all to be true. They ran a scam. They ran an effort to try to get Donald Trump thrown out of office. Normally, they're able to get rid of Republican presidents whenever they want to, but they failed with Trump. So now they're doing a new tack. The Mueller report must contain some evidence. Why, it's 300 pages. They're not going to give this up. And this is why there needs to be, I don't know if it's a special counsel. I don't know if it's literally charging people, but we need to get to the bottom of this and find out just how high up the Obama totem pole this goes. And I think it goes all the way up to Obama. I don't know how he didn't know about this. Brennan, Clapper, all of these people in his regime, leadership of the FBI, it's not enough to call it the worst scandal in the world. They almost got away with this, Sean. And the fact that we say it could never be allowed to happen again, it's still happening. They haven't changed their tack whatsoever. The objective remains, get rid of Trump, defeat us, however they can.
You know, I'm listening very, very closely to what you're saying.
That was with half my brain tied behind my back, by the way. Did you see me put it? Yeah.
Talent on loan from God praises God. If you really think about it, it doesn't take much to get. You know, I've listened to you. You syndicated the last year of Ronald Reagan. You've been a leader of the conservative movement. What you are saying is scary. That this is an attempted coup.
It is totally scary. I don't think the American people understand. This was not, ladies and gentlemen, don't doubt me here, it was not an investigation. There was never any evidence of collusion. Robert Mueller took this gig and opened his investigation without evidence. There was no evidence. He wasn't even given a specific crime to pursue. It was open, and it was go find a crime, because there weren't any crimes that had been committed. But what we just went through was not an investigation. Robert Mueller has known for a minimum, folks, of 18 months that there was no collusion. Why did he not shut it down 18 months? Why did he take the gig? He took the job knowing there was no collusion. The only collusion, we've been saying it ad infinitum, is Hillary Clinton with the Russians and Steele creating this dossier. And they try to pass this off as legitimate intel. You know, you talked about Brennan earlier. He met with the House Democrats yesterday. This isn't over as far as they're concerned. And Brennan is the guy who passed the dossier to Harry Reid. Everybody thinks it was McCain, and McCain played a role in this. But this was not an investigation. This was a coup. This was an attempt to find a crime. And the fact that they couldn't, with all of this money and 19 people on his investigative team, at least the lawyers who were from the anti-Trump camp, the donors to Hillary Clinton, and they couldn't find it. Sean, and ladies and gentlemen, you have to know that the passage in the Mueller report where it says numerous entreaties were made by Russians to the Trump campaign, but that's not what happened. What happened is the FBI attempted to plant their own informers in the Trump campaign. One of them named Stephen Halper, a Cambridge professor, MI6, UK. They tried to get him hired in the foreign policy advisory role here during the campaign. And fortunately, whoever interviewed him didn't hire him. If he had been hired, and they tried to get two other people, if they had been hired, guess what they would have done? They would have started communicating with Russian agents they know. And then there would have been the collusion that the FBI was trying to create. There wasn't any. This is worse than anybody is being led to believe it is, because it's being called an investigation and Trump passed the test. They didn't find anything. They're not finished. They aren't through trying to get rid of Donald Trump. They're not through trying to overturn the election results of 2016. They're never going to finish trying to get rid of Trump. Even if he's elected in 2020, they're setting up the impeachment now with all of this stuff. It's never. That's why these people need to be politically defeated and pounded into the ground to the point of irrelevance. And the way to do it is to educate as many Americans as possible to what happened. And you can't do that by moving on and saying, okay, well, we escaped this one, gang. Let's move on to the next agenda item here, which better be immigration, by the way. It is not finished, and it wasn't an investigation. There was no evidence ever of collusion. It should never have begun. Rosenstein should have never appointed anybody. The FISA warrants to spy on the Trump campaign were illegal. The judges there were either complicit in this or they were lied to and now don't care. We've got a two-tier justice system. The very foundations of this country have been attacked and assaulted, and the people who know it in the mainstream media are complicit in it instead of trying to blow it up and explain it to the American people. We're at a very, very dangerous point in the history of our nation, and there's just one guy standing up against all of this, and that's Trump. There's not another Republican that I know of. Maybe you do, Sean. There's not another Republican that could have withstood what Trump's put up with for 1 week. They would have been suing for peace. They would have been giving up. They would have acknowledged all this and resigned. It is a stroke of luck here that we've had Trump to put up with this. But the fact that it was attempted by unelected, the counterintelligence apparatus of this country, CIA, DIA, NSA, was turned against one man and his family, and by extension, his supporters and his administration, because he had the audacity to win and defeat Hillary Clinton. And these unelected people, these arrogant, elite, effete snobs in the so-called deep state administrative state, simply couldn't abide it and have not stopped. McCabe's still out selling his book on the basis that there's collusion. And we see Pencil Neck out there claiming that there's still collusion. And we got Swalwell. These guys, it ought to prove to everybody that it is a ongoing political project to get rid of Trump. They don't care about whether or not the Russians actually spied or actually affected the election because they know it didn't happen. And if somebody was given the order to rig a presidential election, I don't even think it's possible. And Obama even said so. So this whole premise is ridiculous. It's not legitimate, and yet everybody's dealing with this as though a serious investigation. Why do we dodge the bullet? Trump really... It's not an investigation. This was an attempt to throw him out of office just because he won and they didn't like it. It's no more complicated than that.
That is an extraordinary monologue. You know, Rush, there's a few
no
of us...
No teleprompter here, Sean. No teleprompter.
No, you do not. That's all extemporaneous. You know, there are a few of us here at Fox. Primetime, Laura, Tucker, Fox and Friends. There's you leading in talk radio. I'm on talk radio. Mark in talk radio. I've had an ensemble cast on this show that have dug deep. The 99.9% of media drive-bys bought it, sold it, hook, line, and sinker, and as they always do, get it wrong. That's never going to change, is it?
They didn't buy anything. They didn't buy anything. They were in on it. They don't feel any remorse. They're unhappy they failed. They don't care they lied to their audiences. They're not worried if their audiences are going to reject them. They're not worried if their audiences now don't trust them or believe them. They were in on it. They were complicit. They considered themselves to be part of this elite gang inside the Beltway that runs the town. And they were in on it. And so all it is now is that they have failed. You know, I saw something where MSNBC prime time had a sudden, inexplicable 20% loss in audience one night this week. Now, what does that tell? You're a broadcast professional. I'm a naturally talented, highly trained broadcast specialist. Let me tell you something. When she loses, Rachel Maddow or CNN, when they lose 20% of their audience, just because this thing bombed out, it tells me that their audience is there not because of those people, but because of the fake news. And when the fake news bombs out, when all these expectations that Trump is going to jail, Trump is going down, well, he's not. It didn't happen. They failed. And so MSNBC cannot serve their expectations anymore, and their hosts are not enough to hold the audience. It's nothing other than a testament to the fact that they create an audience that wants to believe a bunch of lies, wants to believe the worst about their country because they get up every day doing that already. And now what are they going to do? That's why these people have to come up with the new hook. The Mueller report is 300 pages. Barr summary is 4. There's got to be collusion. And now they're trying to get everybody worked back up, lying to them again, continually lying to them, misrepresenting the truth, manipulating these people. It's no wonder we can't come together, Sean. Whoever it is that watches the drive-by media and primetime cable on the left, there's no way we can ever have anything in common with them. They're being told, they're being instructed to literally hate this country because it's unjust, it's unfair, it was founded immorally or something. This is a dire circumstance when facts and truth don't even have a chance with a certain segment of the population, when they have been trained and conditioned to want to believe the worst and want that. You would think that they would be happy that the president didn't collude, that the Russians didn't determine the outcome of the election. But now look what they've even done to that. Every election going forward is tainted. The Russians, every time the Democrats lose, it's going to be some external factor. It can't be that they lost because they were rejected. No, it's going to be the Russians or some other foreign agent got in there and cheated and stole it from whoever their next nominee is. That's why there shouldn't be any attempt to cross the aisle, make common ground. We don't have any common ground with them. They need to be pummeled into the political dirt and become acknowledged as the minority they are. And I'm dead serious about this. Dead serious about it. We're at a crisis in this country because the media has given up even the pretense of objectivity. They are now leftist activists pushing an agenda, and this one failed, so it's on to the next one.
As I listen to you really closely, this is ongoing, but there's another factor. Look to 2020, new Green Deal. What do you see on the horizon politically?
the new well,
you know.
New Green Deal. Okay, look, here it is. What is the selling point of the Green New Deal? That we've got 12 years to live. That 5% of the nation, of the world's population, because it's the United States to blame, right? It's the United States has to engage in all the fixes. The United States has to do all the reparations. The United States has to fix it because we are destroying the climate. 5% of the world's population, and we've only got 12 years. Let me tell you, if we've only got 12 years, then we better just throw everything out the window and start doing everything we want to do every day, because we're going to be dead in 12 years if we don't enact their stupid. It's absurd, the idea that anybody could believe this intellectually, if they actually take a moment. By the way, how many, I remember in 1988, I'm watching This Week Needs David Brinkley, and they've got some guy on there, Alan Oppenheimer. We've only got 20 years to save the world. Can you prove this is happening? Well, no, but we can't take the chance that it isn't. So we need to implement policies immediately. Then Ted Danson came along in 1980 and said, we get 10 years. If we don't fix the oceans, we're going to die. This is something that gets recycled. We don't even have the power to impact the climate. We can't change it for better or worse, but it is constantly changing. All we can do is adapt to it. We're the best in the world at that. Green New Deal, they can't even support it in the Senate when it comes up for a vote. And it's another lie. And it's another example of how they're manipulating and misrepresenting their unfortunately sick base. The sick base wants to hear this. They want to hear that we're going to die. They want to hear the apocalypse is coming. They want to hear that life is nothing but eternal suffering. And they want somebody to pay the price for it. If it's the rich, if it's billionaires, if it's corporations, if it's Republicans or whoever else. So these people, voters, and tell them life ends in 12 years unless we do what? Retrofit every building, stop cows from farting, stop eating beef. It's insane.
Rush.
And you can go through there. Yes, I know I've got diarrhea in the mouth here, Sean. I'm sorry.
Listen, I really have one more question. I don't get you in the chair. Can you stay? I got to charge confiscatory rates. They're going to kill me for not breaking. Can you stay for one more question?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be happy to. I'm just light a cigar here while you're doing that, and I'll be right over here when you get back.
All right, as we continue our exclusive Rush Limbaugh, Rush, this may go down as your greatest rant ever, but the most important because of... No, I'm serious. I'm being extraordinarily objective.
What happens when you have a lot of... it's what happens when you have a lot of time, so I appreciate that, Sean. You're very, very generous.
Listen... this is really important what I'm going to ask you. You say we must defeat them. 2020 is around the corner. How?
Well, obviously, defeating him requires the president being reelected. And I'm going to tell you, in my estimation, the one thing that he needs to zero in on is immigration. I know he wants the Republican Party to become known as the party of health care, because that's a tangible thing that really matters to every human being in this country. But I'm telling you, he was elected on immigration and stopping it. Sean, we suspended immigration in the United States from 1920, I think, 1 through 1965, in order to assimilate all those who had come into the country legally from the late 1800s through 1920, Ellis Island and all that. We had to assimilate them. They had to become Americans. They had to join American society, American culture. That isn't happening. We have a political party opening the border for illegal immigrants that come. What happened to the rule of law? I think the president should shut the border. If he shuts the border and builds the wall, there is nobody, Sean, that can beat him in 2020. It remains the issue for the vast majority of freedom-loving, Constitution-loving, American-loving citizens. If it doesn't happen, the country that we know and love, there's always going to be in America, but it's not going to become it's not going to remain a constitutional republic as founded if we don't get ahead. It's nothing about these people that makes them bad. It's the rule of law. Once you allow people to break the law, once you signal lawlessness is okay, then where does it stop? These people are not being conditioned to assimilate. The Democrats don't want them to assimilate. The Democrats want to keep them poor, want to keep them dependent so they will always vote Democrats. The Democrats are not compassionate people. The Democrats need a permanent underclass. They want these people to come in here, remain poor, remain in need. If they're going to be here, let's turn them into productive people that can help this country grow. But right now, we've got to stop the flow. And if Trump does that, Sean, with a wall or shutting the border for a little while to make sure we get a handle on those who are in the country now, nobody can beat him.
Let me go to the other issue, and that is the economy, foreign policy. You know, here's the bigger question. Where is the backbone of other Republicans? I'm not a Republican. I'm not registered Republican. I'm a conservative because I think they're weak. Where is their backbone?
Well, we talk about this a lot every time we get together. And look, the Republicans for the first 9 months of Trump's first year thought they believed this scandal crap, and they thought Trump was gone, so they wouldn't get behind the agenda. Half of them didn't want him to win. Look at all the Republicans that resigned, ostensibly because they were losing their committee chairmanships. But we wouldn't have suffered this massive midterm loss if so many hadn't resigned. The Republican Party is not unified. American conservatism is not unified. And so right now, Donald Trump remains the unifying figure, or at least the blunt force figure that can look. Everybody wants to be in the bright lights of winning. Even these Republicans you're talking about, they'll be glad to show up when the fighting's over and shake hands and put their hands in the air in the bright lights and act like they played a role in it. Maybe so, but waiting around for them to get on board is I don't think we have the luxury to do that. We have to bring them on board, like we have to bring the swing voters to our side, not go defensive and try not to offend anybody and hope we show them we're nice people. If we haven't proven that we're nice people after all of these years, it's a lost cause. We have to engage in issues that matter. Most of the American people are going to improve their lives, going to make them feel trust and hopeful about their country and their future. There are gobs of people that want to feel this way. There are gobs of people out there that want to be proud of this country, and I just tap into it and make it happen. I see the yep. There I go again.
No.
Thank you.
Listen, thank you. This is perhaps an epic monologue that will be looked at for years. We can't thank you enough, Rush. Thank you very much.
I honestly have such mixed feelings about this. I don't, this is something from the late 80s. And, look, as I always say, I really do people think, people have a right, and evolution and change is excellent, and you can't hold, one thing against somebody like this for their whole lives. But Joe Biden, I think, today is actively dishonest. And I think that maybe there's not the same type of issue, but he's lying about his position on Social Security. He's dishonest.
He said at the beginning of his campaign that he has the most progressive climate change plan.
Right.
He just lies.
He lies. So this wasn't, part of a discrete event. And the other thing I would say, too, is that I think that if you combed, making a mistake, taking a quote and not attributing it, I am sure I've made that mistake unintentionally. I have no doubt.
Podcasting is great because you can never get busted for stuff like that.
But it's a mistake, and I think, right. I think, people, and then there's the next level of like, man, say that other person put that point about some policy so well, and damn, am I tempted to take it, right? A third level is pawning somebody else's biography as your own. And that is the one I would suggest, and maybe I'm wrong, but I would feel like the first two ones are something that and it's a mistake and it shouldn't happen in any case. But those are like pretty much in the kind of range of, yeah, human beings mess up every single day. Those are probably mess ups that everybody would make. I think it's pretty unusual for somebody to sit down and watch somebody else's speech and say the part where they're talking about their hard scrabble childhood, that's the part that I'm going to take.
Copy paste.
So it wasn't just that Joe Biden plagiarized in 1988, or even, by the way, I've heard of some politicians actually getting screwed by their speechwriters. It's not their fault. The speechwriter shares, they're consultants. They work for multiple clients. They're churning out content.
They're on a deadline. They take something. I think that happened. I think Bob Shrum did that to Gordon Brown. I think he took an Al Gore line from 2000, gave it to Gordon Brown. And Gordon Brown was furious because it made him look like an idiot. It wasn't his fault. It was Shrum's fault. This, as you'll see from this report in 1988, is very different. And it's weird. That's the only word.
Democratic presidential candidate Joseph Biden today faces a controversy. 3 weeks ago at a debate at the Iowa State Fair, he used phrases identical to those delivered by British Labour Party leader Neil Kinnock.
Biden seemed to be claiming Kinnock's vision and life as his own.
Why is it that my wife, who's sitting out there in the audience, is the first in her family to ever go to college?
Why is Gladys the first woman in her family in 1,000 generations to be able to get to university?
My ancestors who worked in the coal mines in northeast Pennsylvania and come up after 12 hours and play football.
8 hours underground and then come up and play football.
It's because they didn't have a platform upon which to stand.
There was no platform upon which they could stand.
The notion that every thought or notion or idea you'd have to go back and find and attribute to someone, I think, is quite frankly ludicrous.
The problem here is that I'm sorry. Yes, that was sort of, well, I don't know if it's ludicrous, but yes, that was kind of the point I was making, that mistakes are made, words are shared, particularly when you're speaking instead of writing. Absolutely. But I think we just all saw what Joe Biden was doing there. That was not well, that's a good rhetorical flourish. That was that was like a horror movie. It was like some type of roommate movie, except Neil Kinnock is just like, was Joe stealing my body?
To someone, I think, is quite frankly ludicrous.
The problem here is that Senator Biden told his audience he'd just been thinking about these things, and he failed to give any credit at all to his famous British speechwriter.
I was thinking on the way over here. Now that's a little too much, because as you point out, what's behind the words? What's there? And a lot of people, the rap on Biden has always been that it's just a surface.
I should have said, to paraphrase Neil Kinnock, it's the only time I didn't, in all the times I've ever used it.
But CBS News found a tape of a second instance.
It reappeared in the New York Times with a new charge, that Biden had appropriated a famous litany from the late Robert Kennedy about what the gross national product cannot measure.
It cannot measure the health of our children.
The health of our children.
The quality of our education.
The quality of their education.
The joy of their play.
Or the joy of their play.
Biden gave Kennedy no credit. He has also quoted or paraphrased John Kennedy, Hubert Humphrey, and British Labour Party leader Neil Kinnock, all without credit.
Joseph Biden admitted today that he committed plagiarism when he was in law school. He said it was a mistake, but that it was unintentional.
He quoted 5 pages of someone else's work without proper citation.
I've done some dumb things. And I'll do dumb things again.
I like,
that's a drop.
I like the last thing. But let me just say this. I think that's like that Kennedy thing. If you would think that it was a clip video and he just said, and now it's a quote, one of my heroes, Bobby Kennedy. That is a verbatim line by line. And what's funny, I mean,
That's a good Kennedy speech, and that's not, I mean, yes, this is pre-internet, but that's not exactly a not known speech. You're not like finding some, city council person in Dubuque who had a way with words.
Honestly,
that's kind of a big figure there that you're stealing from.
The Kinnock thing kind of makes sense in a pre-internet era, because it's like, okay, how many people are really going to be? I mean, the problem is like electronic media makes this.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is the pre-internet, post-telegraph.
Abe Lincoln was like, "Give me all the speeches from Manchester."
Right. Yeah. Yes, somebody who had a similarly upbringing in Liverpool. Let's gank it.
Democratic presidential candidate Joseph Biden today faces a controversy. 3 weeks ago at a debate at the Iowa State Fair, he used phrases identical to those delivered by British Labour Party leader Neil Kinnock.
Biden seemed to be claiming Kinnock's vision and life as his own.
Why is it that my wife, who's sitting out there in the audience, is the first in her family to ever go to college?
Why is Gladys the first woman in her family in 1,000 generations to be able to get to university?
My ancestors who worked in the coal mines in northeast Pennsylvania don't come up after 12 hours and play football.
8 hours underground and then come up and play football.
It's because they didn't have a platform upon which to stand.
There was no platform upon which they could stand.
The notion that every thought or notion or idea you'd have to go back and find and attribute to someone, I think is, quite frankly, ludicrous.
The problem here is that Senator Biden told his audience he'd just been thinking about these things, and he failed to give any credit at all to his famous British speechwriter.
I was thinking on the way over here. Now that's a little too much, because as you point out, what's behind the words? What's there? And a lot of people, the rap on Biden has always been that it's just a surface.
I should have said, to paraphrase Neil Kinnock, it's the only time I didn't, and all the times I've ever used it.
But CBS News found a tape of a second instance.
It reappeared in the New York Times with a new charge that Biden had appropriated a famous litany from the late Robert Kennedy about what the gross national product cannot measure.
It cannot measure the health of our children,
The health of our children,
the quality of our education,
the quality of their education,
the joy of their play,
or the joy of their play.
Biden gave Kennedy no credit. He has also quoted or paraphrased John Kennedy, Hubert Humphrey, and British Labour Party leader Neil Kinnock, all without credit.
Joseph Biden admitted today that he committed plagiarism when he was in law school. He said it was a mistake, but that it was unintentional.
He quoted 5 pages of someone else's work without proper citation.
I've done some dumb things, and I'll do dumb things again.
He was given an F.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I've been dumb.
To the political community in Washington, it all seems of a piece. Plagiarism at law school, plagiarism on the stump.
The great communicator. Strike that. The great imitator.
You don't steal verbatim, or when you do, as he did 99% of the time, you give credit.
Biden's critics say he sells himself as a man whose words and visions can inspire a new generation in politics. But if the thoughts, phrases, and visions really belong to others, it's a form of false advertising.
Is it a wise idea, though, to take something that personal, anyway, from another politician and try and appropriate it to your own campaign?
I think it was a stupid thing to appropriate material that was really very personal, that was someone else's.
Most people didn't know who he was, Joe Biden, and now they're going to say, oh, yeah, he's the guy who plagiarized. That's
a lot of people.
Politically, that's devastating.
These clips are devastating. He looks like a Joe Biden wind-up doll with somebody else's words coming out.
If they're going to do things that are stupid as well as immoral, then they're probably too dumb to have the job of president.
Voters are going to have to decide whether he was dishonest or dumb.
Senator Joseph Biden may have more explaining to do.
The new questions stem from taped remarks of Biden during an April campaign appearance in New Hampshire.
I went to law school on a full academic scholarship, the only one in my class to have a full academic scholarship. Went back to law school and, in fact, ended up in the top half of my class. I was the outstanding student in the political science department at the end of my year. I graduated with 3 degrees from undergraduate school and 165 credits, only needed 123 credits.
Biden now concedes he did not graduate in the top half of his law school class, that he does not have 3 degrees from college, and that he was not named outstanding political science student in college.
Newsweek says Biden actually went to school on a half scholarship, ended up near the bottom of his class, and won only 1 degree, not 3.
Joe Biden ranked 76th in a class of 85 at the University of Syracuse Law School. I mean, this guy comes off this whole thing as a flyweight.
Now Biden says Newsweek is right. His memory had failed him.
And I'd be delighted to sit down and compare my IQ to yours if you'd like, Frank.
Joe Biden was victimized by the truth.
Bye-bye Biden. He may not know it yet, but I think this is going to be very difficult for him to recover.
Is Joe Biden dead meat, yes or no?
I think so.
Bob?
It's in terminal condition.
Terminal. Eleanor?
Yes, unless he comes in third in Iowa.
Morton?
Dying.
I say dead. We'll be right back.
Have Joe Biden ever wrote his own damn speech? Right now, the left is writing his speeches. Back in the days, that nigga used to just steal them.
Kinnock's vision and life as his own.
Why is it that my wife, who's sitting out there in the audience, is the first in her family to ever go to college?
Nigga, you didn't write that.
Why is Gladys the first woman in her family, in 1,000 generations, to be able to get to university?
Joe Biden is a speech thief.
My ancestors who worked in the coal mines in northeast Pennsylvania don't come up after 12 hours and play football.
You lying motherfucker.
8 hours underground, and then come up and play football.
I think he said it better, Sleepy Joe.
It's because they didn't have a platform upon which to stand.
There was no platform upon which they could stand.
Joe Biden not only stole the speech, he lied about stealing the speech when he got busted and said he forgot that he borrowed it.
The notion that every thought or notion or idea you'd have to go back and find and attribute to someone, I think is, quite frankly, ludicrous.
Nigga, if you made a record and you use somebody else's speech along with they beat, nigga, that's copyright infringements. Nigga, your ass should be getting sued for speech right infringements.
The problem here is that Senator Biden told his audience he'd just been thinking about these things, and he failed to give any credit at all to his famous British speechwriter.
Because he forgot.
I should have said, to paraphrase Neil Kinnock.
To paraphrase my grandmother, nigga, please.
It's the only time I didn't.
And we supposed to believe that.
In all the times I've ever used it.
Nigga, how many times did you use it? Or are you lying about that too?
But CBS News found a tape of a second instance.
Joe Biden is an habitual speech thief.
It reappeared in the New York Times with a new charge.
And was that charge kiddie porn?
That Biden had appropriated a famous litany from the late Robert Kennedy about what the gross national product cannot measure.
Oh, he just stole another speech from the late, great Robert Kennedy. I thought he got busted for kiddie porn.
Cannot measure the health of our children.
The health of our children.
The quality of our education.
The quality of their education.
The joy of their play.
For the joy of their play.
I wonder who you stole that 94 crime bill speech from. David Duke. Joe Biden said they wasn't going to use it no more, so he was just going to borrow it for a little while.
Biden gave Kennedy no credit.
More explaining to do.
The new questions stem from taped remarks of Biden during an April campaign.
Went back to law school and in fact ended up in the top half of my class.
Who'd you steal that speech from? Doogie Howser?
I was the outstanding student in the political science department at the end of my year. I graduated with 3 degrees from undergraduate school and 165 credits, only needed 123.
So you overgraduated. Yeah, right.
Credits.
Biden now concedes he did not graduate in the top half of his law school class, that he does not have 3 degrees from college, and that he was not named outstanding political science student in college.
That nigga was named most likely to be a child molester.
Newsweek says Biden actually went to school on a half scholarship, ended up near the bottom of his class, and won only 1 degree, not 3.
Joe Biden couldn't have graduated at the top of his class if the nigga had a ladder.
Joe Biden ranked 76th in a class of 85 at the University of Syracuse Law School.
So Joe Biden didn't even graduate in the top 70% of this class. And Syracuse, not even an elite school.
I mean, this guy comes off this whole thing as a flyweight.
When the truth is, Joe Biden is an idiot. Next, let's hear from Barack Obama, right-hand man, on did Barack Obama and Joe Biden spy on Donald Trump campaign?
Joining me right now is former senior advisor to President Obama. She is the author of the book, Finding My Voice. Valerie Jarrett is here.
She? Are you sure that's a she?
So how do you bring everybody together? Clearly, Joe Biden teamed up with Bernie Sanders on his Unity Task Force recommendations for the economy.
Or as AOC called it, the New Green Deal.
But they certainly feel like they're very progressive, and you've got members in his party saying the things that I just said.
That he will be the most progressive president ever.
What's your reaction?
Yeah, let's hear this bullshit.
Well, first of all, I think Vice President Biden has the ability to pull the party together.
That nigga Joe Biden couldn't pull a sentence together.
He has the track record, the experience, the intellect, the judgment, the temperament to be president of the United States.
Hold on, what fucking Joe Biden you talking about?
And the fact that Senator Sanders and all of his former opponents have come on board and supported him, I think sends a strong message to their supporters.
That Joe Biden is a communist.
So yes, there's work left to do, and I know Vice President Biden is committed to doing everything within his power
to fuck up the country with socialism.
And he's going to call on those other leaders, whether it's Senator Warren or Senator Sanders, Senator Harris.
Them hoes from the squad.
All of his opponents who now stand firmly with him to help bring the party together.
And take away Americans' constitutional rights.
We have a big tent in the Democratic Party, and we have a ways to go before November, but I'm confident Vice President Biden will galvanize our party.
First, that nigga need to galvanize his damn thoughts. The only time I saw Joe Biden speak clearly and with his regular thoughts was in the 94 crime bill speech when he sounded racist. That nigga was really himself then. He was real comfortable in his skin.
No, well, you just said that the Sanders folks are coming together for Joe Biden. They're not.
Because they got demands first.
They're only going to come if Biden does Medicare for all, and he continues to talk about the items that are important to them, like big government programs. Is he going to support Medicare for all?
She know he is, but she won't tell.
Well, look, I think Vice President Biden has been very clear on what his position is.
Hold on, bitch. Don't nobody know his position, including his supporters.
But what my point was, Maria, is that Senator Sanders has endorsed him.
Well, what is his position? What is his position? Will he support Medicare for all?
Can't you answer the damn question?
I'm saying there's going to be a lot of conversation between now and the convention about the platform. I'm not here to speak on behalf of Vice President Biden.
Well, ain't that what you came on the show for? To speak on his behalf? Now all of a sudden you're not speaking on his behalf. Ain't that a bitch?
I think he's been very clear that he is committed to making sure that we have affordable health care for every American. And as we've seen in the midst of this COVID-19 pandemic.
So is that a yes? Because I really don't know what the fuck you talking about.
How important it is that we be able to take care of Americans. And so he wants to improve the Affordable Care Act. And I think the core principles of having affordable health insurance for every American are consistent across the party.
Next question, please.
Meanwhile, there are real questions surrounding the Obama-Trump transition. Earlier this summer, I spoke with Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson about his investigation into the White House handover. Listen to what he told me.
That a motherfucker in the Obama administration is busted.
You are investigating the transition from the Obama administration into the Trump administration. Can you walk us through what you have learned so far?
So this hoe can deny what she don't know all she won't.
What we saw was a total corruption of that, before, during, and after this transition.
This would be a 3-part series if it was a TV show.
Here we're talking about potentially State Department involvement in helping obtain the Steele dossier and pushing that into the FBI.
Somebody going to jail.
What we know is corrupt investigations, the misuse of defensive briefings, all the media leaks, and of course the Obama administration holdovers, what they did once they were inside the Trump administration to frustrate and sabotage his administration.
Hopefully Obama gives some answers when somebody tell on his ass.
So this is a serious internal attack and assault on our democracy, the most serious possibly in our history.
And that's a long-ass history of corruption.
So, Valerie, what did you know about the dossier and about the Obama administration spying on President Trump's campaign?
Now, she don't know anything. You know that.
Well, first of all, I think what we all know and what should be concerning to every American is that the Russians tried to interfere with our election.
I see you stole this speech from Hillary Clinton.
Not only do we know that they did it back in 2016, but we know that there are efforts ongoing to do that. And so the question I have is, why aren't we doing everything possible to make sure that there isn't foreign influence in our elections coming up?
How many different excuses the Democrats gonna use for the election? Coronavirus, China, Russia, the post office, mail-in voting. The Democrats got more excuses about the election than a crackhead.
Why is every single Secretary of State...
So, Valerie, how come President Obama didn't do anything about it?
That is a question she is not going to answer.
How come President Obama didn't do anything about it if he knew that the Russians were meddling?
Because Barack Obama was Putin's little bitch.
Well, he certainly did try to do something about it, including addressing the issue directly.
What did he do?
Nothing. But she going to make up something.
He called out Putin directly. We put pressure on the intelligence community. In fact, we tried to even work with...
But Valerie...
So in other words, Barack Obama ain't done shit.
But Valerie, we're talking about... Valerie, we're talking about the biggest... Valerie.
Pay attention, ho.
We're talking about the biggest political scandal of our generation. One administration, one political party spied on another political party. Hillary Clinton paid for the dossier. We now know that the subsource of the dossier, we now know that the source of the dossier told the FBI that it was garbage and hearsay in early January. Were you in the Oval Office meeting on January 5th when Joe Biden said he wants to use the Logan Act against General Michael Flynn? Were you there?
She is going to lie. Because she is not under oath.
No, of course I was not there. And my point, when you say, Maria, that this is the largest scandal, we have nearly 130,000 Americans who died from a pandemic. We have millions of Americans who've lost their jobs. The Trump administration...
That's not a political scandal.
Now, that was stupid, and your ass lying. That was China and that bat meat.
Valerie, that's not a political scandal. I'm talking about the largest political scandal we've ever seen. And I asked President Trump about this issue recently. Listen to what he said, Valerie. Listen to the president. Here we go.
Since you acting like the scandal not even real.
Do you believe President Obama directed the U.S. intelligence agencies to spy on you?
Yes, he probably directed them, but if he didn't direct them, he knew everything.
Because he was the president. How he not gonna know nothing?
Once they
and you'll see that. By the way, excuse me, you're going to see that when the papers come in. Remember the Lisa Page text to her lover?
Peter Strzok.
Saying POTUS wants to see everything? POTUS.
Who the fuck was POTUS then?
They're not talking about me. I wasn't president.
Barack Obama was.
So what do you think should be done, Valerie? What do you think should be done, knowing that one political campaign spied on another? President Obama apparently had his intelligence agencies spying on President Trump, from the FBI to the CIA to the State Department.
And you forgot the swimming ducks because Barack Obama sent everybody.
I think you're losing sight of the real issue here, Maria. I think the real issue is...
No, your ass not answering the question is the real issue. But just for kicks and giggles, what you think the real issue is?
Trying to do everything possible to keep Russia from trying to influence our elections.
So you want to move the focus off coronavirus
and to look at whether there was any possibility that Russia was reaching out to campaigns to get involved in that process. That's where the focus ought to be.
And put it back on Russia. Or do you want to blame both on Donald Trump? Was your dumbass there, yes or no?
I've gone to Russia many times and have been watching this happen for decades. So we all know that Russia has been trying to meddle. But now we're talking about a very serious situation. We have a criminal investigation underway. People could go to jail.
Hopefully my hitman won't go to jail, so I won't have to use Anthony Robertson donation to bail his ass out.
Do you believe if Jim Comey knew that the dossier was fake and garbage and he kept going, re-upping warrants to spy on the Trump campaign, that he should go to jail?
Because it's a crime, not because he's a Democrat. Now, that could be a totally different answer.
Well, Maria, look, I have a high degree of confidence that our intelligence community, our investigators, comported themselves responsibly.
But just in case he didn't, should he suffer the same fate as everybody else?
Look, Lindsey Graham is the one that encouraged Senator McCain to turn over the dossier in the first place to the FBI.
Bitch, we is not talking about Lindsey Graham. He didn't commit the crime. We're talking about James Comey.
And so I can't tell you all of the reasons why Comey went forward with his investigation. Maybe this was one piece of a bigger puzzle.
It was the only damn piece of the puzzle.
But I do know that it's nearly 4 years ago, and I don't understand why our focus isn't on what's happening right now and today.
Because the crime didn't happen now. It happened then.
That's the investigation I'd like to see.
Well, what's happening right now is we are learning... Valerie, what's happening right now is we are learning the details of what took place, and we are getting official confirmation that the FBI knew that the dossier was garbage and made up in a bar because the subsource of the dossier told FBI officials in early January. Then in early January, you had an Oval Office meeting where President Obama apparently said, we got to get the right people involved to investigate General Flynn.
James Comey and friends.
We had Joe Biden say, let's get him on the Logan Act, and we know all of this from Peter Strzok's handwritten notes.
With his dumb ass, it was almost like the nigga was trying to get caught.
So let me ask you this. Did you want General Flynn to be unmasked as well? I know a lot of your colleagues did. Joe Biden wanted it. Susan Rice wanted it. They wanted him unmasked. Did you also say you wanted him unmasked?
Hell yeah, but she ain't gonna tell.
Maria, no, I was not involved in any of those conversations. But the question I really want to put to you is, what are we doing today?
She want to talk about Russia because she know her ass is guilty.
If people want to have an investigation about what happened 4 years ago, they should do that. But aren't you concerned about what's going on right now? Aren't you worried about the integrity of our upcoming elections? Aren't you worried about how we're going to have a safe and fair election?
Yes, that's why I'm asking you this question.
Because if Joe Biden was involved then, Joe Biden could be involved now.
That's what, Valerie, that's exactly why I'm asking you these questions, because I am a patriot and do not want to see people in positions of power put their finger on the scale and make up a story that there's collusion with a foreign power when there's absolutely no evidence of that.
Especially if they're running for president.
And if the powers that be knew that there was no evidence of that in early January, I want to make sure that we do not have the powers in government spying on political campaigns because the other political campaign paid for it. We know that Hillary Clinton paid for the dossier.
And that's a fact.
So this was an election year. You've got one campaign paying for dirt on another campaign, and you've got the amazing intelligence agencies of our government weaponized.
For one party, the Democrats.
So that's what has taken place here. You're saying you knew nothing about it? You were President Obama's right hand.
Man, and you didn't know shit. Because you still look like a man to me.
And a lot of people wonder how much President Obama directed this. So I ask you, did President Obama direct any of this?
Hell yeah.
That's not how it works. That's not how our investigations work. That we leave that to the intelligence community to bring forward information. And the dossier, I would imagine, would be one piece of a much bigger puzzle.
Here you go with this puzzle shit again.
And so if you're saying, is it important to make sure that there isn't influence? And actually, the Mueller report didn't conclude that there wasn't any wrongdoing. In fact, he was explicit in saying quite the opposite. And so I don't think we should read in where there hasn't been actually any conclusions to that effect yet. You're making statements that actually haven't been
just to be clear.
Bitch, what? You must be out of your damn puzzle-ass mind.
Just to be clear, Robert Mueller said no collusion. Michael Horowitz, the IG of the FBI, said that the dossier was, quote unquote, an essential piece.
And Pro Production sent me an essential donation. Pro-Productions love the way I'm protecting the United States from the Democrats. I feel like a superhero.
Of all of this investigating of the Trump campaign, essential piece was the word Michael Horowitz used.
I gotta give my hitman an essential piece to his gun, a silencer.
So you say it was part of a larger mosaic. We have no evidence of that.
And your ass don't either.
We only have evidence of the dossier.
And no other piece to no puzzle.
But I really appreciate you coming on this morning, Valerie, and answering the tough questions that our audience certainly wants answers to.
So get your lying ass out of here. Next! Who is she anyway?
Long friend, time friend, and she's a friend. She's been my friend.
Nigga, what? I don't trust you or your friends, or you around kids.
By the way, you know, I sit on the stand and it get hot. I got hairy legs that turn blonde in the sun. And the kids used to come up and reach in the pool and rub my leg down so it was straight, and then watch the hair come back up again. They'd look at it. So I learned about roaches. I learned about kids jumping on my lap.
Wait a minute, nigga. How'd you go from roaches to kids jumping on your lap?
And I've loved kids jumping on my lap. And Corn Pop was a bad dude. And he ran a bunch of bad boys. And I did, and back in those days, to show how things have changed.
Yeah, you can't have little boys jumping on your lap no more.
Joe's not all there. Everybody knows it.
Well, Patricia Moscello donation was there. And the weed man is gonna know it.
Mr. Vice President, your opponent in this election, President Trump, has made your mental state a campaign topic.
We want to know if your ass is nuts.
And when asked in June if you'd been tested for cognitive decline, you've responded that you're constantly tested in effect because you're in situations like this.
Well, what's that nigga test results?
No, but could you imagine if I said just a small fraction of the mistakes he makes, which are unbelievable, every speech?
In every interview, that nigga needs to take the test.
No, I haven't taken the test. Why the hell would I take a test?
I don't know, to prove that you fit enough to run the country.
Come on, man. That's like saying before you got in this program, if you take a test where you're taking cocaine or not, what do you think, huh?
You should have asked your son that before he joined the army.
Are you a junkie?
What do you say?
No, but your son is. Next! Nigga, take the test.
I want to be clear. I'm not going nuts.
Well, what you call it?
I know I'm called middle class Joe. It's not meant as a compliment. Means I'm not sophisticated.
Or intelligence. That's the difference between you and Donald Trump.
And there's an area where there's an important difference between the candidates. I'm right.
Yeah, a brain.
I actually said the other night, I was watching him when he said about half the population wiped out with guns. I said, that's a horrible thing.
And so is my baby mama back here. Next!
Now he's feeling the pressure of an economy that's teetering on a recession.
Wait, I can't translate no shit like that. But I can translate my homegirl Lynn donation. Thank you, Lynn Herndon.
We can't rebuild our economy and meet this climate crisis.
I can't decode that either.
Union workers, the UAW took incredible cuts in their future.
Okay, I give up. Let's not talk about your qualifications no more. Let's talk about your foreign policies.
I took on Putin in terms of Iraq. In terms of what was going on.
That's all right, Joe Biden. Are you sure you fit enough to run the country?
I'm among many qualified people.
What people? Nigga, I'm not talking about the swamp or the squad or Black Lives Matter. Nigga, I'm talking about you.
But guess what? If you elect me, you're not going to have your taxes are going to be raised, not cut. If you benefit from that.
Because somebody gotta pay for the new Green Deal. Next! Who a bigger liar than Joe Biden?
Well, I'm part of that Obama coalition. I come out of the black community in terms of my support. If you notice, I have more people supporting me in the black community that have announced for me because they know me. They know who I am. 3 former chairs of the Black Caucus. The only African-American woman that ever been elected.
So I guess Kamala Harris don't count. Watch Cory Booker face right here.
To the United States Senate. A whole range of people.
No,
my point is...
that's not true. The other one is here.
I said the first. I said the first African-American elect.
Nigga, you said the only.
No man has a right to raise a hand to a woman.
That's exactly why I hired a hitman.
In anger, other than in self-defense, and that's rarely ever occurs.
Okay, so are you saying it's cool to whoop a woman's ass sometimes? I'm sure you fit enough to run the country.
I'm among many qualified people.
What people?
To the United States Senate. A whole range of people.
You never know where your ass is at.
Now, Sleepy Joe would say the unemployment rate in the great state of Ohio. No, you're in South Carolina.
3,900 of them right here in the state of South Carolina.
Joe, you're in South. They come up and you ever see the guy that no, it's South Carolina. It's not Ohio. Okay.
In terms of the beauty of it, and what a neat town. I mean, this is sort of a...
Then he goes, all right, Iowa? Did you say Iowa? No.
For example, you are in the state of Ohio.
I did that like 7 times.
Because what you do here in Iowa, what they do in Iowa, what you do here in a primary.
If I did that once, it would be the end of the road, right? Be the end of the road.
I think Joe Biden is at the end of the road, and he do too.
I propose, and I'm going to digress slightly. We're in a situation.
That's all right, Joe Biden. We see you ain't too good with thinking or handling the truth.
So how do you explain the performance in Iowa, and why should the voters believe that you can win the national election?
It's a good question.
No comment.
You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier. You said you were, but now you got to be honest.
Look who's talking. Next.
That's a stupid way to say it.
You know, Donald Trump was asked on...
Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, probably best I don't.
I would agree. And she would too.
I don't know, it's like watching a yo-yo. I shouldn't have said it that way. It's like watching...
It feels that way. I want to ask you...
And I see this interview is driving both of you motherfuckers crazy.
We gotta... It's just... Yeah. But you gotta... I mean, we gotta reassure... Look.
We can't look, nigga. We gotta listen.
My message to everybody I talk to.
And it's probably stolen from somebody else. Nigga, you ain't proven to have one original thought.
No, Sleepy Joe.
So 80% of all healthcare workers in America are women. And 1 out of 3 jobs held by women in our country has been classified as essential. So this is an issue that affects all of us, young and old, every kind.
Even Joe Biden knows she's talking about some bullshit. Next.
Somehow for Joe Biden. Oh, yes.
He's got a tough job.
He does. You know what? I'm sure he's a busy guy. I'm sure he gets no sleep. But the point is, a major policy speech by the big man.
Well, Joe Biden must know that's some bullshit, too.
The boss, the president.
But I'm sure he's run it by him already, so he's
he knows it already.
Joe Biden, like, if Barack Obama is saying it, we know it's a lie. I might as well take my ass to sleep.
And so what he's doing, he's deep in thought, really contemplating the budget numbers. This is Vice President Biden during a speech yesterday. Of course, the president is presenting his debt reduction plan.
And Sleepy Joe is doing what Sleepy Joe does best, sleep.
And it's sad when you look at it and you see it. You should see it for yourself. He's created his own sanctuary city in the basement of wherever he is.
I don't know what the hell he's talking about. Did you watch that? Look, come on, man.
He talking about your dumb ass hiding.
But, I mean, I'm so forward looking to have an opportunity to sit with the president.
Sit with the president and debate?
Or stand with the president in debates.
So the debate is optional. You can stand or sit.
There can be plenty of time. And by the way, as I joke with him, you know, I shouldn't say it. I'm going to say something I probably shouldn't say.
What? Something stupid?
Anyway, I am very willing to let the American public judge my physical and mental, my physical as well as my mental.
That's easy. Fail.
For President of the United States, look me over. If you like what you see, help out. If not, vote for the other person.
Well, you heard it from Joe Biden first. If you don't like idiots, vote for the other person.
Wake up. Get to work. There's so much more to be done.
And so many more videos to do. Another special shout out to Dale Dove for the donation. Also, Maria Vavalon. What's up? Special shout out to Sheila Bennyfield. Good looking out to my boy James, who loved my channel. Also, Deborah, who nominated me for the Nobel Peace Prize. Dragonfly Designs hit me up with the Bible scriptures. I'm going to go look at that. Also, Maria Johnson, MAGA, Keeping America Great, my sister. Also, Northwestern Motorcycle, I bet you at Sturgis right now. Heather, how you doing, Heather? Zatu, what's that, Zatu? Joshua Nathanson, Nathanson? I guess I got that right. Alex Ferrier, I guess I got that right. Jared Hansen, I know I got that right. Sheila Benfield, what's up with you, Sheila? John Eldred, what's up with you, John? Erica McCormick, I got that one right. Tulsa Brickworks, got that Brickworks. No Limits Life, you're right about that. Joyce Variety Shop, check them out. Evelyn LaGracia, like the last name Grass. What's that? The Gaming God? Check him out. David Piera. Michael Clark. How you doing, Michael? What's up with you? I don't call you GB. That's what I'm going to call you. Michael Grilly. Greg Sloan. Gregory Cooper. What's that? Scott Siddlin? I hope I got that right. Bobby Burris. Patricia Roderick. How you doing, Patricia? John Swigler. The Swigler. Logan Enright. I got that one right. Christopher Carroll. What's up with you, Chris? Robert Wilson.
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. Thank you for watching. We appreciate it. In case you haven't noticed, it's hard to trust anything you hear right now. We've heard you. We're grateful that you trust us, and we will try to be worthy of your trust. We want to begin tonight by assessing some of the things no doubt you have heard about last week's presidential election. There are conflicting versions of virtually every part of that story. But as of right now, here's what we think we know. For much of election night, Donald Trump seemed to be leading in a number of key swing states. Then early Wednesday morning, he began to fall behind. That trend continued more or less for several days. On Saturday, the media declared Joe Biden the president-elect. Biden quickly accepted that judgment. The Biden campaign now has something called the Office of the President-elect. It sounds official, which of course is the point of setting it up. And in the end, it's possible it will be official. If, after all the questions have been answered, it becomes clear that Joe Biden is the legitimate winner of the presidential election, we will accept that, and we'll encourage others to accept it too. We're Americans first. We want what is best for this country. We want our system of government to continue. Whether it does continue, though, depends in part on how we proceed from here. As of tonight, tens of millions of Americans suspect this election was stolen from them. That means we now live in a country where a large percentage of our population no longer believes that our democracy is real. That is sad. It is also dangerous. It could easily get worse. What we're doing in response is hardly the solution. It is making our country much more volatile. It is setting us up for something bad. In a democracy, you cannot ignore honest questions from citizens. You're not allowed. You can't dismiss them out of hand as crazy or immoral for asking. You can't just cut away from coverage you don't like. You can't simply tell people to accept an outcome, because force doesn't work in a democracy. That's dictatorship. In a free society, you have to convince the public of your legitimacy. You have to win them over with reason. Democracy is always a voluntary arrangement. Telling voters to shut up is never enough. So in this case, tonight, there's only one way to lower the national temperature and unite the country. We need to find out exactly what happened in this election. And there are questions, and that means we have to answer them. For example, in Pennsylvania, Nevada, and Michigan, the Trump campaign has now collected signed affidavits that attest to criminal activity during the voting process. In the city of Detroit, witnesses have alleged under oath that ballots were improperly backdated and counted without matching signatures. One poll watcher alleges that 40,000 late unsealed absentee ballots were counted orally, and all of them went for Democrats. In the state of Nevada, 8 whistleblowers from within the Nevada Election Department say they witnessed voter fraud abetted by other election officials and by their supervisors. According to one affidavit, a poll worker saw people bringing handfuls of ballots to a Biden-Harris campaign van. Those ballots were then filled out at the van, placed in return envelopes. Eventually, Biden supporters formed a wall to block outsiders from seeing what they were doing. Meanwhile, according to voting records, people who were not even alive still somehow managed to vote on Tuesday. In New York, deceased voters cast absentee ballots. On October 9th in Nevada, a man called Fred Stokes Jr. mailed in his vote. The only problem was Fred Stokes Jr. died 3 years ago at the age of 92. The Republican Party of Nevada says it is aware of hundreds of other potential cases of dead people casting ballots. In Pennsylvania, records show turnout from several people who were born in the 19th century. They apparently rose from their graves to vote. Now, all of that is real. We spent all weekend checking it. False claims of fraud can be every bit as destructive as the fraud itself, so we need to be careful and responsible, all of us. But what we just told you is true, and there's more of it. Just hours ago in the state of Georgia, an election official admitted that they will find illegal votes and double voters when they check the voter rolls.
Let me be perfectly clear on another point. We are going to find that people did illegally vote. That's going to happen. There are going to be double voters. There are going to be people who did not have the qualifications of a registered voter to vote in this state. That will be found. Is it 10,353? Unlikely. But every election, as I've said, I think every day at this podium, is imperfect.
We are going to find that people did illegally vote. That's going to happen. That is the official account before even counting the votes from a key swing state in the middle of a contested election. And of course, you can believe it because we've already found illegal voting. So much for those claims that voter fraud never happens. Of course it happens. They knew it happened when they told us it would never happen because they're liars. So we know that for sure. At this stage, the fraud that we can confirm does not seem to be enough to alter the election results. We should be honest and tell you that. Of course, that could change. But changing the election results is not the whole point. The real point is that fraud took place, and that should horrify us. If you want people to believe that our system is real, that our system is worth, say, joining the military and dying to protect, then you've got to get to the bottom of what just happened, and you've got to do it as quickly and responsibly as you can. You can't have fraud in an election because no one will believe in elections, and then things fall apart. But gathering facts is the last thing our media, our designated fact gatherers, seem to want to do. Instead, they're demanding that you shut up and accept Joe Biden. Period. That's their verdict. You must accept it. And if you don't accept it, they'll hurt you. In other words, no one in this country is going to set up a, quote, resistance to Joe Biden. They're going to make certain of that. Those resist stickers you remember? No, those are for Range Rovers only. No pickup trucks allowed. Try it, buddy, and you'll find out. Overstatement? Well, this morning, a prominent anchor on CNN sent this tweet to Trump supporters. Quote, I truly sympathize with those dealing with losing. But at a certain point, one has to think not only about what's best for the nation, peaceful transfer of power, but how any future employers might see your character defined during adversity. Got that? Your character is on trial here. Future employers take note. In other words, accept Joe Biden now or you will never work again. Do what CNN tells you to do or good luck feeding your family. Did the Sicilian mafia ever make threats that explicit? No, they didn't because they knew the FBI was listening. But in this case, the FBI is on board. And so, of course, is the entire media establishment. After Joe Biden claimed victory on Saturday, CNN released an ad commanding its viewers to accept Joe Biden as their lawful president and holy savior. If you don't let Joe Biden into your heart, there cannot be peace. Watch.
Our trust has been broken in our leaders, in our institutions, even with some of our friends. And we hurting. Now more than ever, we need each other to listen, to learn from one another, to rebuild those bonds.
It's over. Now's the time to come together. Now's the time for healing, or else. So what exactly is this healing that they're looking forward to, that they're commanding you to participate in? Well, Michelle Obama's thought a lot about healing. In her message of unity, Michelle Obama wrote this, quote, "Let's remember that tens of millions of people voted for the status quo, even when it meant supporting lies, hate, chaos, and division," end quote. That's the unity message. Let's remember who disobeyed. Let's hurt them. Let's remember the people who voted for our political opponents. Sandy Cortez of Westchester didn't need to be reminded because she hadn't forgotten. Cortez asked this, quote, "Is anyone archiving these Trump sycophants for when they try to downplay or deny their complicity in the future?" In the future? Is George Orwell writing her scripts? No, she's writing them herself. And the answer, of course, to that question, the question, is anyone keeping track of the Trump supporters who must be punished into perpetuity? The answer is yes. Someone is keeping track. In fact, many people. Harry Savugin, the former national press secretary for the Democratic National Committee and former Pete Buttigieg staffer, was already hard at work on an online enemies list. He wrote this, quote, "White House staff are starting to look for jobs. Employers considering them should know there are consequences for hiring anyone who helped Trump attack American values," end quote. Oh, American values, says the guy who's going full Soviet. Totally impervious to irony, these people. Corporate America, of course, was on board. Needless to say, they never left. They were always on the team. The Chamber of Commerce, the National Association of Manufacturers, Republican groups, right, along with CEOs from companies like United Airlines, Microsoft, Amazon, you name them. They already congratulated Joe Biden as the counting was still underway. And as they were doing that, the media were not hard at work verifying the integrity of the election, of the democracy they so deeply cherish. They weren't interviewing the poll workers who signed those affidavits we just told you about, which are real. Instead, here's what they're doing.
How you feeling?
I almost can't talk right now because of the emotion. Everyone is welcome under this tent. We don't care who you are. We don't care if you voted for us or not. You're all part of this American experiment. I was so overwhelmed to hear that. I don't care what people think, if they think I'm biased or not, I don't care. And so I'm very emotional. So when you ask me how I'm feeling right now, I'm sorry. That's all I can tell you. This is how I feel right now. I am so happy to have this platform to be able to do this. I may not have it after this, but I really don't care. I am so happy.
I don't care. Take it from someone who does this gig for a living. If you can't keep your emotions in check to think clearly, you are a child, go do something else. I don't care if people think I'm biased or not. There you go. And they really don't care, because they don't need to, because they won or claim they do. Like all hasty decisions, the one they're trying to force on us, we will regret it. Have you ever made a hasty decision you can live with long term? No. No, you haven't. The point isn't that we need to keep investigating until Donald Trump wins. That is not the point. The point is we need to find out what happened so that the rest of us believe the system is real. And to make that happen, Congress ought to investigate every meaningful claim of illegal voting. Every legitimate claim that is raised must be investigated. Would that become a circus? Of course. Would a congressional hearing on voter fraud descend inevitably into partisan posturing? What do you think? Yeah, it's guaranteed. But there's no choice. It's still worth it. An investigation like that, a federal investigation, would produce facts. And we need facts. Transparency is the key. Without it, there's no hope. Ever wonder why people on both sides are embracing conspiracy theories? Why do you think that's happening? And you can't just make them go away or shut down the websites. People reach for that. Why? Because they know the people telling the official story are lying, and they are lying. And the moment they try to get real answers from the people in charge, here's what happens.
All of you, suck it up. Suck it up like we sucked it up. And if you are not sure that you're comfortable with Joe Biden, do what we did. Find things and then take it to the law. And if the law says it's something to look at it. But from now on, suck it up. Grow the pear. for him that he can't grow for himself. Because this is ridiculous. You're not sure that he won. You bringing into question all these Americans who voted legally, came out and stood and voted. How dare you question it?
The unhappiest people in the world have all the power. And how dare you question it? How dare you ask why dead people are voting? How dare you question the decision desk, plebe? Who are you? Their contempt, evident all along, is completely out in the open right now. If you won't admit that Joe Biden is the president, even though votes are still being counted, guess what you are? And you saw this coming, ladies and gentlemen. You're a racist.
More white people voted for Donald Trump in 2020 than they did in 2016. So the reckoning that we're experiencing as a nation, at least to my mind, shows us that race, selfishness, greed continue to threaten the very life of our republic.
Oh, of course. Racism, says the Princeton professor. Of course. Not a surprise. That's always the answer when they want to force you to be quiet. The question is there a shelf life on this? How long do the people in charge think they can continue making the same play again and again and again? How long can the most privileged people in our society, the Princeton professor, berate those beneath them into silence from their perches on cable news? They probably imagine they can do it forever, but they're wrong. It can't last. Nothing this grotesque goes on forever. At some point, it will end. We hope the system won't explode at that point, but that's where we're going. So what's the solution? How do we fix it? How do we bring the country together? How do we calm things down? How do we make an America you want to live in? And the only answer, the only solution is honesty. Let's all stop lying. Lying about everything that matters, every day of our lives. That's what we're doing now. Have you noticed? How many times did you lie today because you had to? Let's repeal our national dishonesty mandate. It's a law never codified, but still ruthlessly enforced. And tell the truth instead. That's our only